Baby!
Hey everybody, welcome back to My Pinball Machine Collection, Part 13. To the right of me is the next game that we're going to take a closer look at, and it's a perfect game to focus on after the last one, which was Taxi, because Diner is a very similar game, and a lot of my memories growing up and my nostalgia and my tug at the heartstrings stuff we talked about, a lot of that's very similar. Diner was released in 1990, again during the upswing of pinball before it hit its peak. And to be honest with you, the actual machine itself, I think, is one of the nicest looking machines that came out at the time. The whole theme is encompassed all the way around the machine. The playfield has a sort of checkerboard, almost diner table pattern. And if you look, you got silverware here, and your instruction card is actually a guest check. You have a jukebox on the top right, you have a cash register on the left side, and you have a giant saucer cup up in the top middle. The great part is if you look at the playfield, if you really look close, you'll see these signs on the playfield. Mark's world famous chili, Dine Alone. If you look at the back glass, I mean, it is really, really cool. It has a slightly three-dimensional look. These characters are actually on springs, and if you shake it a little bit here, and as the game is being played, they actually wiggle a little bit, and it gives it a really cool bit of dimension. And even the cabinet has a really cool design. So the whole machine, to me, is really, really nice to look at. And if you're talking about a game that would look great in your game room, or even in a diner if you own one, you can't get any better than Diner. Now, if we're taking a look at the rules, again, that's where Taxi and Diner are very similar. In Taxi, you had to pick up 5 passengers, you played the taxi driver. In Diner, you have to serve 5 customers, you play the person who serves them. You got Haji, Babs, Boris, Pepe, and Buck. And each one of them wants some certain kind of dish or some combination of food. And the food is basically here on the playfield as well. You got things like hot dogs and fries and root beer and chili. And as each character screams out for it, you have to serve them whenever they want.
I'll have the Texas chili and fries.
Now, unlike Taxi, where in order to pick up the passengers, you had to shoot a certain area, in Diner, you essentially have to knock down 2 sets of drop targets. You got the yellow ones up here in the center, and you have the red ones over here on the left. And each is connected to one of the individual things that each character is screaming for.
I'll have burger and fries.
And once you knock those down, you hear,
Order up.
and that's how you know you served one of the customers. Once you serve all 5 customers, you light the Dine Time jackpot.
It's dine time.
You don't have to do it in one ball. Taxi, you gotta do it in one ball. So to be honest with you, the adrenaline rush in Diner is not as high as it is in Taxi. All it does is reset the drop targets if you drain. This makes it a little easier to get the jackpot. I get the jackpot often in Diner, whereas in Taxi, if I'm having a really game, I won't. You have the Today's Special scoop right here. If you shoot the ball in there, you'll get the mystery award, which is the Today's Special. What have I been saying about Mark Ritchie games? That's right, they have crisscross ramps. It's one of his signature things. They crisscross a little differently, but they still crisscross. And again, if you take a look up here on the translite, I have Mark Ritchie's autograph on the side of the Diner car. He was nice enough to sign that for me. One is actually the cash register ramp, and if you look here, every time you shoot it, you move these lights up, eventually getting to the extra ball. The right ramp actually lights these Diner letters here. When you spell Diner, it opens up the entrance to the saucer here. It'll actually spin the ball around, and the more spins, the more points you get. You also have the EAT lights here, which obviously move your multiplier around. You have a grill bonus, which is where the extra ball is that you have to shoot for once you light it, but also the grill will move up in these lights and you can get a lot of points that way. And finally, it's the lock multi-ball thing. This cash register ramp actually lifts up, you lock the ball underneath the ramp, and then if you can release them both, you then start multi-ball, and by shooting the rush hour lights, you'll be awarded a whole bunch of points via the ramps. If you look here, the jukebox is actually your skill shot. Shooting the ball up and around will award something up here. It's a good idea to get used to shooting that correctly because that's worth a lot of points right off the bat. Just like in Taxi, I love the music in Diner, and I also love the speech. And once again, you have characters that essentially are just screaming out what they want.
Hurry up, partner.
And every time you serve one of them, you get a little jingle or something.
Order up.
If you listen close, the jingle for Boris is the same as the jingle for Gorbachev in Taxi.
Order up.
Except he doesn't say hey at the end. Well, guess what? Those of us who still are standing around, we still say hey. Yeah, I have mental issues. Now, the first time I saw Diner was in a bowling alley, and it was the exact same bowling alley that I saw Taxi for the second time, if you were listening to the Taxi story. I would also find it at a truck stop called Pilot, which was right up the road from my college.
We got a copy of Diner here?
In fact, I used to go there during my lunch break, eat, do my homework, and play some pinball. In 2005, I found this diner, and I gotta tell you, I got very lucky with it, just like I did with Taxi, because it is in amazing shape, but also it has a couple of unique quirks to it. Take a look here on the playfield, and it says, this playfield is protected by diamond plate. Diamond plate playfields, such as Addams Family, Fishtails, those came later. The diamond plate concept did not just appear on playfields from Williams, they tested it for a while. Diner, Whirlwind, some of those games had test diamond plate playfields. There weren't many of them. And here we are with one of the rare diamond plate diners. And as a result, the playfield has really kept itself up well. Once again, just like with Taxi, I wanted to preserve this playfield because I didn't think I would ever see a diner like this again. And so I tore everything off the top, everything off the bottom, and I sent it off to have clear coated. This is not a prototype or anything. It doesn't have any prototype boards in it, but it is a diamond plate early playfield. If you look, it has a yellow habit trail. The production games were all silver, but some of the early ones are said to have a yellow powder-coated habit trail, and then they decided, probably for cost reasons or whatever, or maybe they didn't like the way it looks, they decided to then put on just the regular silver ramp. By the time the playfield came back, it was getting late. I really didn't start working on this game until almost before I ended up moving. And so it's not quite done. It's almost done. These EAT lights are supposed to light up here. There's a couple flashers behind there that aren't working that I had to rewire. And the biggest thing is this right here. This clock is actually supposed to keep track of how many millions you get if you get dying time. Well, unfortunately, it's sticking and it's moving funny, so it needs to be cleaned out and some optos probably repaired. So there are a couple of things still that I have to do to this game, but I got about 96% done with it or so. That's a random number, but I got this close to finishing it. So that's my diner. It's a game that I'm planning on keeping as long as I possibly can. I spent a lot of time again on Diner, just like I have on Taxi, because to me, from a heartstring standpoint, it was worth it, and I'm glad that I did, because this is my keeper right here. Thanks for joining me, everyone. I'll see you next time for My Pinball Machine Collection, and